I'm joined by Charlie Angus, member of the Canadian Parliament, who is part of a delegation right now in Brussels as part of the NATO parliamentary meetings, which came after the disastrous Munich conference for the United States and, frankly, for all of Europe, where J.D. Vance attacked the European democracies, where you had Pete Hegseth in Europe saying horrible things about Ukraine and Europe. So, Charlie, what's going on there? What's your message right now to the United States?
I think we've witnessed the most extraordinary week in European politics since the fall of the Berlin Wall. But that was a good story. What we've seen over the last week, beginning with the disaster in Munich with J.D. Vance, total attack on European democracy, and then followed up here at our NATO meetings with all of America's key allies, that they flushed 75 years of diplomacy, hard work, commitment to the rule of law and international diplomacy. They just flushed it down the toilet while Trump and Vance and the MAGA morons here took the time to kneel down and kiss the feet of Vladimir Putin. Things will not go back to what they were. And Europe now is very much cast adrift from the United States, and certainly Canada is looking to where our place in the world is, and we're looking more to Europe now than to our closest neighbor.
So tell us what's going on behind the scenes. It still seems like, at least publicly, while we are seeing a lot of, European leaders, speak up against Trump and what happened, they're still trying to be diplomatic. But you're there right now in the inner circles. What's really happening, Charlie?
What really surprised me from the get-go, I think the European leaders were shocked by what Vance had done in Munich, because it was a real threat to, democracy. It was a promotion of far-right extremism, and people in Europe have deep memories of what it means to suffer far-right extremism. So on the surface, there was this attempt to hope that the Americans were just bluffing and Trump was just being Trump. But it became really clear as the meetings went on. I was certainly very vocal and pushing for a clear position. And I think that aided many of the allies started coming up to me. So Latvia, the Baltic states who are on Putin's front line are feeling right now that they're being sold down the river. We're seeing in Germany the fears of the far right. We're seeing Vance's interference in the Romanian election system. People understand that this is now a threat to their way of life. And as we are meeting, we actually have word coming out from Saudi Arabia, the most despicable anti-democratic place on the planet, where we have a convicted felon and a indicted war criminal trying to carve up Ukraine. That was happening while we were supposed to be, as NATO allies, talking about a plan for Ukraine. So this was a total slap in the face, and I don't think the MAGA morons who came here fully understand how much damage they have done to America on the world stage.
There was an altercation, or I don't want to overstate it, but there was an incident between you and a Republican member of Congress who approached you and tried to, he thought he was like joking around with you with your Canadian pin. What happened?
Well, there's. I've been meeting with the Democrats. The American Democrats have been, tiptoeing around. I think they're shell shocked like everybody else. Some of these MAGA guys just thought they were just being funny, and one of them came up to me, and I had my Canadian pin, and he had met me before and tried some really stupid jokes about Elon Musk that didn't go down very well, and he said, "Hey, Canada," and he went to touch my lapel, and I said, "Don't you ever touch the Canadian flag," and he said, whoa, I'm just joking. And I said, "You'll die before you ever touch a Canadian flag." And I said, "And we're not joking." And then everyone sort of backed off, and then he vamoosed out of the room. So I don't even know what his name was, but we're not like that as Canadians. But I thought, you need to understand how far you pushed us, and you need to understand how dangerous it is that what you're doing right now in promoting Vladimir Putin to destroy Western democracy. Your leader, and I don't think this guy's bright enough to know that Trump is now in league. The two gangsters of the modern world are in league to try and destroy Ukraine. That is simply cannot be allowed to happen. The Ukrainian people have suffered too much, and they are all of our front line right now in the fight against tyranny.
Charlie, earlier this morning, Donald Trump made a post where he said Zelensky is a modestly successful comedian that talked the U.S. into spending $350 billion. He calls Zelensky a dictator. He says a dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. And so what's your message to Donald Trump?
Donald Trump has kissed up to the gangster Putin from the get-go. When we saw the horrific violence unleashed against the Ukrainian people, Donald Trump thought this was a sign of a savvy genius. To attack a leader like Zelensky, who has more moral fiber in his little toe than Donald Trump has in his entire body and his entire cabinet, is outrageous. Vladimir Zelensky has shown the world what democracy means. Donald Trump is a convicted felon and a sexual pervert. Those two men shouldn't even be mentioned in the same sentence. But this is what I would leave you with, because it was said to me by one of my Eastern European colleagues who came up after they had heard that Donald Trump is now calling for regime change in Ukraine. And she said to me, the Ukrainian people survived the Holodomor. The Ukrainian people survived Stalin. The Ukrainian people survived Chernobyl. They've survived Putin. Do you think that Donald Trump is going to break the Ukrainian people? So Donald, just put a sock in it for now. You need to understand that the damage that you're doing to help your criminal buddy, Vladimir Putin, will pay in the long term enormous damage to democracy, to your allies, and to the world. And the world will be forced now to treat America the way we treat Putin. And we are going to all have to pick up our game dramatically to defend democracy, whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in our own countries.
Are you seeing that in Canada right now? We were talking before about the boycott in Canada of all things American. Do you see it picking up, slowing down? Is the prevailing view in Canada at this point that you're basically dealing with a Putin of the South?
Canada has the largest Ukrainian diaspora in the world. Ukrainian Canadians are a huge part of our population. So there is a deep emotional link. So I think what Putin did in his attack on Zelensky and his attack on the people of Ukraine reminds Canada that he's looking at us the way Putin looks at Ukraine. So right now, the boycott is the front line of defense, because we know once the job losses start to mount, once the economic pressures start hitting in places like Tennessee, where it's already happening, Kentucky, where it's already happening, all the border states, then that's when the lesser militant red state MAGA people are going to start calling on Trump. So this is our first line. But what's been really encouraging is we're seeing that people around the world are saying, hey, if Canada can do this, we can do it too. So we are encouraging people across the world. And we've seen actually some really interesting numbers coming out of the United States of ordinary Americans who are now boycotting the companies that have openly supported Trump. So I think this is a really important tool to have. This is not the end all. We're dealing with a very, very dangerous and volatile situation, but ordinary people, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Minnesota, or whether it's in Germany, can make choices based on what they're going to buy and what they're going to not buy, where they're going to visit and where they're not going to visit. And that's going to come down to whether or not we believe in Western democracy and values of decency and human rights, or we believe in the gangster state of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. I think we know what the answer is.
Charlie, Angus, please keep us updated on all of the developments. If anything else is happening out there, let me know. We'll have you back on right away. We appreciate your leadership in Canada and across the world, bringing people together to stand up to the authoritarian regime we have here right now in the United States. Thanks, Charlie.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And just to also say thank you for the work you're doing, because a lot of ordinary people are looking for facts. They're looking for information, and you're certainly providing it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlie. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.